Hello everyone, welcome back to another video on Elite Academy. Today we have taken the topic from history and the question is with respect to Gandhi-Irwin Pact of 1931. So this question is pretty direct and they're asking that which one of the following statement about Gandhi-Irwin Pact of 1931 is correct. So mark it, they're asking correct. Sometimes we get confused what they're asking and we will not read carefully and we commit mistakes there. Okay. The statements are the government would not release those prisoners who would have been non-violent. So that was not the case. So this statement is wrong. It is incorrect. So this is not the answer. B is saying the government would not release those prisoners would who had indulged in peaceful picketing of liquor and foreign cloth shops. No, this was rather allowed. So this statement is also incorrect. Third is the Congress did not agree to suspend the suspension of civil disobedience movement. They agreed because they wanted some movement. So this is also incorrect. Last one is the Congress agreed to take part in second roundtable conference. Yes. So that was the only roundtable conference in which Gandhiji and Congress participated. So this is the correct statement. Okay. So the factual information about Gandhi-Irwin Pact is that it was a political agreement which was done on 5th of March 1931 between Gandhiji and Irwin. Irwin was the Viceroy at that point of time. This is also known as Delhi Pact. So sometimes UPSC will change the name. However, it is very popular name Gandhi-Irwin Pact, but Delhi Pact is also another name of this pact. So sometimes it might be given to confuse uh, us. So we have to be careful. So what happened? We should also know the chronology of events in order to understand the story. So the chronology was that first 1919 Act came and certain constitutional reforms were brought in and promises were made. And there was a provision that there will be a commission formed after 10 years to see what kind of constitutional reforms has to be given. Okay, then we know that the famous name of that commission, that is Simon Commission, it came. And then Simon Commission was like boycotted and people didn't support the politicians, the our the Congress and representatives did support that. Then we launched CDM. CDM was launched because of the failure of the Simon Commission with the objective of complete independence from the British rule and to oppose the colonial laws imposed on the people. And it was started by Salt Satyagraha, Dandi March. Okay, then CDM was launched, Salt Satyagraha was there, and that time also, that time when civil disobedience was launched or Salt Satyagraha was launched, that time Gandhiji gave 11 demands. He presented 11 demands in which he he asked for many things: abolition of salt tax, release of political prisoners, reduction in military expenditure, prohibition of intoxicants, or even abolition of CID department. Like this, 11 demands were put in front of the government, and ultimatum was given that by January 31st, 1930, either accept it or reject it. At that time, also we had Lord Irwin was the Viceroy, and he suggested that okay, we'll go for a table conference, and he rather reiterated the goal of dominion status. Okay, so amidst all this, Salt Satyagraha was launched, and we will discuss in detail about that. First, we'll finish. After roundtable, roundtable conferences were held, and some deeds or some acceptance was done, and we finally launched 1935 Act. So certain compromise happened from Congress side, and the government came up to some conclusion. Then Pune Pact, and after that 1935 Act we adopted. But let's in this topic we will first understand why Gandhi-Irwin Pact was launched, or why it was signed. Okay, so CDM, as we know that it was started by launching Salt Satyagraha in 1930. British government at that time imposed restriction on INC and Gandhiji and other leaders with approx 1,000 of Indians. They were jailed, they were imprisoned. Now the whole world was criticizing the British government. And in India, British government in India, at that time, Ramsay MacDonald was the prime minister. He was from Labour government. So Labour government was under pressure. And they were under pressure for the unfair treatment of the Indians. Because of this, they had to release the political prisoners. They had to release Gandhiji. When Gandhiji to ease the pressure when Gandhiji was released, and at that time Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel was the Congress president, and he authorized Gandhiji to hold talks with Lord Irwin. At that time, uh, he was his name was proposed that okay, Gandhiji will talk on behalf of Congress because government was calling for a negotiation. So that time, roundtable conferences or the Gandhi Irwin Pact came into picture. Okay, so this was the story why the Gandhi about the issues or about the chronology of events around that time, Gandhi Irwin Pact, especially with respect to Gandhi. If we discuss, then Gandhi Irwin Pact came up with these things. It was about end of all ordinances. Finally, it suggested, it gave, they agreed to these points that okay, end of all ordinances and prosecution. Basically, they withdraw all the ordinances and they ended the prosecutions. Next, release of all political prisoners except the guilty of violence. So people who committed violence, they were in jail, and rest of the political prisoners were released. Then they also permitted peaceful picketing of liquor and foreign cloth shops. So peaceful picketing was allowed. Be very careful. It was given in the question as well. They even agreed to restore confiscated properties of the satyagrahis. Okay. Next was they permitted free collection of manufacture of salt by persons near the sea coast. So these points were agreed upon, and also they lifted the ban on the over Congress. But there were certain points which were not agreed upon by the government, Majesty's government. That is, public inquiry into police excesses were demanded by Congress, but it was not accepted. They didn't agree to this demand of Gandhiji during its suppression of the civil disobedience movement. Also, commuting, it was Gandhiji also demanded that okay, let's commute the death sentences of Bhagat Singh and his associate to life sentences, but even this demand was not agreed upon. So this way, Gandhi-Irwin Pact came into picture. And roundtable conferences were three rather peace conferences which were conducted by the Indian leaders and British government to discuss the independence and the constitutional reforms in India. So we have discussed that Gandhi Irwin. Whenever we are talking about Irwin, who is Irwin? Irwin was a viceroy at that point of time, and we should also know the important viceroys, because the viceroys become important at what all events happened during their tenure. We should know. So UPSC has a habit of asking this question that okay, this all these events, it happened when? Who was the viceroy? Who was the Congress president? So these are the favorite areas of UPSC from where the prelims questions are made. But let's understand the broad structure. So broadly, if we have to understand, then British rule over India started as a trading unit when East India Company received a royal charter from Queen Elizabeth I on 31st December 1600 century. And within a period of time, nearly 3 centuries, the Britishers, they turned into a trading power to one of the most powerful countries in the world. And in India, the British were able to establish this control through various governor generals and viceroys. So it started with Governor of Bengal. Who was the first governor of Bengal? Robert Clive. So the person whose image you can see on the screen, he was Robert Clive. He was the first governor of Bengal. Then in 1773, the Regulating Act 1773 was done, and the post of Governor of Bengal was converted into Governor General of Bengal. So the image which you can see on the screen, it is the image of first Governor General of Bengal, who is Warren Hastings. Yes, so he was the first Governor General of Bengal. So Regulating Act 1773 was responsible for this. Then moving forward, in 1833, by Charter Act of 1833, the post name of Governor General of Bengal again got converted into Governor General of India. So the image which you can see above Governor General of India, he was the first Governor General of India, who is William Bentinck. Okay, so Lord William Bentinck, he was the first Governor General of India. Then comes the 1858 Government of India Act 1858. This act was responsible for changing the name of post of Governor General of India into Viceroy. So the image below the Viceroy, which you can see, is the image of Lord Canning. So he was the first Viceroy of India and his name was Lord Canning. Okay. Now we will have, there were approx after this 1858, around 17 people were in the capacity of Viceroy. They were there till 1947. Okay, and we will cover the important ones. Definitely we cannot cover all the Viceroys. We will cover the important ones and we'll try to understand. Starting with Lord Canning itself. So here, Lord Canning, he was the both. He was last Governor General of India and he was the first Viceroy. So how to remember it? His name is Lord Canning. So you can make it funny for your relevance that he was very cunning person. Canning was very cunning. He wanted the benefit of being the last Governor General of India and also being the first Viceroy of India. And during his tenure, the few prominent events which haven't happened or occurred were that abolition of East India Company. East India Company was abolished and the transfer of control of the company was transferred to the Crown by the Government of India Act 1858. So Government of India Act 1858 came and it abolished the East India Company. Next, 1857 revolt. That was when he was Governor General of India. 1857 revolt happened during that time, which was known as the First War of Independence. Okay. Also, the establishment of 3 universities at Calcutta, Madras, and Bombay also happened in 1857 during his tenure only. So these were the important things because of which you should know. So remember him as a cunning person who was the Governor General of India and Viceroy also, and he played instrumental role in the abolition of East India Company, and he became a Viceroy under Government of India Act 1858. Okay, so this way we have covered about Viceroy Lord Canning. Now let's have a look at next Viceroy. Okay, so he is Lord Lytton. Lord Lytton, many important events happened during his tenure. So the first one being the Vernacular Press Act 1878. So basically this act was intended to prevent the vernacular press from expressing the criticism of British policies. Basically, notably the opposition that had grown with the outset of after the second Anglo-Afghan war, uh, in order to curb the opposition, this act was presented. But this act excluded English language publication. So Vernacular Press Act, it was during Lord Lytton's time. He was the Viceroy. Then even Arms Act 1878, it was also during his tenure only. Basically, it stipulated that no Indians will be allowed to bear arms without a proper permit. National leaders like Surendranath Banerjee called this act as the badge of racial inferiority. Okay, so Arms Act was also one of the thing which happened during his tenure. Then second Afghan Anglo War also happened during his tenure only. That is around 1878 to 1880. Okay, so these were the important things which you should remember about Lord Lytton. Then, but how will you remember it? So Lytton is rhyming and it is sounding like curtain. Okay, so Lytton used iron curtain for Indians. So when you use iron curtain, basically you are not allowing any kind of freedom. You are curbing the freedom. You are suppressing people. So you can remember it this way. Lytton used iron curtain for Indians. Iron curtain, on the name of iron curtain. Iron curtain is symbolic. On the name of that, he came up with Vernacular Press Act. He came up with Arms Act, and he tried to suppress the Indians. Okay, so this way you can remember. See, these tricks you have to apply only till your prelims exam, so that you will be able to recall them. Next we have, who is this person? The serious face. You can see a vision in his eyes. He is Lord Ripon. So this way you can associate your learning with the images and you can remember. So he was a reform-oriented person. He was known as the father of local self-government in India. And he came up with following things. He came up with the Factories Act 1881. Basically, it was a first factory act. So rather remember it as Factory Act, not Factories Act. It is Factory Act, FACTORY. It was introduced to improve the working condition of laborers. It also prohibited the employment of children under age of 7. So that was his vision. That was his approach, reform oriented. He also came up with this repealing of Vernacular Press Act 1882. In 1882, he repealed what was introduced by Lord Lytton. He repealed it. Next, he also introduced a resolution, not act. Remember it. It was a resolution on local self-government in 1882. Basically, it was about developing municipal institution, which has been growing up in the country ever since then. And he led a series of enactment in which larger power was given to local self-government, be it the rural and urban bodies, and the elected people received some wider rights. So he was the person who was responsible for it. During his tenure, even he came up with Hunter Commission on Education in 1882. So Hunter Commission on Education, there was a Hunter Commission to see which was an inquiry commission after the Jallianwala Bagh massacre, okay, with respect to General Dyer. So this Hunter Commission was on education during Lord Ripon. So you remember it this way, that he was a progressive person. So all progressive things happened during his tenure. So this Hunter Commission of Education was constituted to look into the complaints of the non-implementation of the Woods Dispatch of 1854 and to analyze the contemporary status of elementary education in the British territories. So we are not going to discuss in detail what all has happened, what was the recommendation. So he recommended many things, that financing of the development of primary education, then private for secondary education grant in aid feature, and private players should be given more relaxation and more importance for promoting secondary education. So this way the Hunter Commission recommended many things, but you read it in specific in detail when you will revise. Next was Ilbert Bill controversy. So this was during 83 and 84, and Ilbert Bill basically sought to allow senior Indian magistrate to preside over the cases involving British subjects in India. So this became a controversy, that how Indian magistrate can preside over those cases where British subjects in India are involved. So this became a controversy, but however, he was a person where he wanted that, okay, no, everybody should be equal, and he was a reform oriented. So how will you remember it? Ripon. So Ripon, RIP is rest in peace. So he rested in peace all those acts or all those provisions which were suppressing the freedoms of the India, or you can say Ripon did relaxation. So relaxation, he relaxed all the provisions which were suppressing Indians. So this way also you can remember. Next, we have Lord Dufferin. So he was the person during whose tenure Indian National Congress was established in 1885. So you can say he was a Duffer person, that he couldn't even realize that the Indian National Congress was breeding under her, was being formed under his nose itself. And the first session of Indian National Congress was done in Bombay, was conducted in Bombay in December, in the month of December, with the help of A.U. Hume, who was a civil service officer. And the first session was presided by W.C. Banerjee, and it was attended by 72 delegates representing each province of the country. Yes, remember it, because sometimes UPSC has asked this by, they have given the number and they have tried to confuse us. Okay, so we have to remember this. Next is Lord Curzon. So Curzon, how to remember Curzon? Curzon curbed the freedom and led to partition. So Curzon, he cursed Indian basically. So you can remember it. He cursed and he curbed the freedom of Indians and he led to partition. What all happened? So Fraser Commission, it was a police commission. It was appointed during his tenure. So just remember, sometimes they ask this question, that Fraser Commission in 1902 was associated with what? It was associated with police reform or police. It was a police commission. Okay, so they even recommended appointment of Indians at officer level in the police. So Indian could rise only, however, to the rank of inspector of police, the senior NCO position. They were not part of the Indian Imperial Police. Okay, so Fraser Commission was established and they recommended. Then we had University Commission 1902. because of which whatever we have university grants in India, which has become a permanent feature in the structure of Indian education. It was recommended by the University Commission in 1902. But more importantly, we should remember Lord Curzon because of partition of Bengal in 1905, when Swadeshi call at Benares session under the presidentship of Gopal Krishna Gokhale was taken, and the resolution was supported for Swadeshi and boycott movement in Bengal, and against the partition of the province. So partition of Bengal is the important thing which happened. So he curbed the freedom of Indians by which led to the partition. You can remember it this way. Next we have Lord Minto II. So remember his mustache. You can recall him. Lord Minto II. He was two. In his name itself we can see two. So the important Swadeshi movement in 1905. It was during his tenure only, and he during his tenure important thing two. Why I was emphasizing on two, because during his tenure only Muslim League was established, and Surat split also happened. So earlier only Congress was there. So second body, that was Muslim League, was established in 1906, a political uh, body, and he led under his tenure only Surat split happened. That was the splitting of Indian National Congress into moderates and radicals at Surat session in 1907. So he is the person who is known for, rather you can say, Minto is known as the father of communal electorate in India, because during his tenure only Morley Minto Reform 1909 or the Government of India Act 1909 was brought in, and it led to communalization of electorates in India. So be it the communal tension, Surat split, or another body, Muslim League, it was under Lord Minto too. So remember it that way. Next, we have Lord Hardinge II. He was responsible under his tenure, whatever partition was done in 1905. An element of partition of Bengal happened in 1911, and even the transfer of capital from Calcutta to Delhi happened in 1911. So this question, especially UPSC has asked when this transfer of capital from Calcutta to Delhi happened. In one statement they gave, I think somewhere in 17 or 18 prelims they have asked this question. Okay, so this is the second one. And also the Hindu Mahasabha was established in 1950 during his tenure only. So this is about Lord Hardinge II. Next Viceroy, who is important for us, is Lord Chelmsford, and he was there in India during the time when Lucknow Pact was done in 1916. It was between this Lucknow Pact was basically between the INC and Muslim League, All India Muslim League, and it was a joint session of both the parties which was held at Lucknow in 1916. And during this pact, the two parties agreed to allow the representation of religious minorities in provincial legislature. So remember it is religious minorities in provincial legislatures. So these things will be the examiner will try to confuse us. So do remember it that way, that okay, he was responsible for what. Next we have Champaran Satyagrah. It was the first time when Gandhiji was involved in any such kind of activity in India. So Champaran Satyagrah in 1917, and Gandhiji played very important role. Then we have Montague's August Declaration 1917. So this declaration was basically, it proposed the increased participation of Indians in the Indian administration and the development of self-governing institution in India. So August Declaration was you can say it was in favor of Indians. Then also the Government of India Act 1919 came under him only. Montague-Chelmsford Act reform, you can say 1919. Also the other important events which we should remember is the Rowlatt Act 1919. This act allowed certain political cases to be tried without juries and permitted inter uh, without any, they permitted that without, on the name of suspect only, without any trial person can be arrested. So they permitted internment of suspects without trial. Okay. Also The very saddening part was the Jallianwala Bagh massacre 1919. So on 13th April, today is I guess 16th April and 15th April, 2 days back only, it was 103rd year of this massacre. At that time, General Dyer was the general who ordered this the shooting of the people who gathered in the park for celebrating Baisakhi. And during his tenure only, we remember him for this NCM and Khilafat cooperation. So Lord Chelmsford becomes very important because so many important events took place under his when he was the viceroy. Okay. After him, Lord Reading was also there. So we are not discussing about Lord Reading. Directly, we will discuss this person. Who is he? Hope you can recall him from the first slide. So he's the person who is Lord Irwin. So Lord Irwin is again very important because during his tenure only Simon Commission came to India. Simon Go Back. Hope you have seen the movies. You have read the books properly. So Simon Commission of India came to India in 1927. Then Harcourt Butler Indian States Commission was also established during his tenure, that is 1927. The other important events like Nehru report, Motilal Nehru, he prepared a report about constitutional reforms, what kind of reforms is required. So that was during his tenure 1928. The Pavali Declaration 1929. At that time only Purna Swaraj resolution was passed at the Lahore session of Congress in 1929. Okay, and the first roundtable conference also 1930, it happened during his tenure only when Gandhi Irwin Pact was finally signed. That was in 1931. So his tenure ended with the Gandhi Irwin Pact, and because of which we are discussing this question. So this way you have to remember only till here, and then other after this there were many other viceroys like Lord Wellington, Lord Linlithgow, Wavell, Mountbatten. So Mountbatten was the last viceroy and he was the first governor general of Free India. Okay, and the last governor general of Free India was Chakravarti C. Rajagopalchari. So this way you should revise all the important events. Hope you had a very good and very quick revision of all the events, chronology of events, and hope it has helped in your discussion. So for a few days, we will continue with the history topic and we'll see what all topics we can take for your effective revision. So take care, enjoy, bye-bye.